Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Guys YouTube channel where the Force is family. I am Matt Paul.
And I am Mando on Fire, and this is one of those episodes where it's going to be extremely hard for us to talk about, but we feel like that we have to do it anyways.
Agreed, because this, I believe, is a very important conversation to have.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Kyle Rittenhouse case, of course, recently ended. He was acquitted of all charges. And since then, people have had a lot of different reactions to it. Some have been satisfied with the result. Some, to put it nicely, have not been satisfied with the result.
Mm-hmm.
And one such person that has not been satisfied with the result is the main star of The Mandalorian, Mr. Pedro Pascal. Now, before we go any further, want to say one thing. Mr. Pedro Pascal is entitled to his own opinion, and
Mm-hmm.
he can exercise his First Amendment rights as he sees fit. But that being said, I do very much believe that words have consequences, and words very much can affect how you look at a person.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
all
also,
of
with
that,
that being said, we are going to remain about as unbiased to this scenario as much as we can, but of course, we will practice our First Amendment rights as well.
yes. All right, so what we're talking about is a specific tweet that Pedro Pascal recently sent, and I'm going to bring it up now, where he says Joseph Rosenbaum, 36, and Anthony Huber, 27, murdered August 25th, 2020. Rest in peace. These were two of the people that assaulted Mr. Kyle Rittenhouse, and these were the two that Mr. Rittenhouse ended up shooting in self defense, wounding fatally. Now, let's scroll down just a little bit here to Mr. Data Racer, who says Rosenbaum was a convicted, I'm not going to say that word, who I'm not going to say what he did here. Huber, a multiple felony who viciously, I'm not going to read that. And then he asks these two questions. Now, as I said before, we all have our various beliefs and opinions on what happened that night in Kenosha and whether justice was actually served. We're not going to get into that here. However, what I want to talk about is Pedro Pascal's opinions on this. How is that going to affect The Mandalorian whenever season 3 finally does come out? So, Michael, I'll let you give your thoughts on this first. So, I have two questions. Number one, how does this change your interest in The Mandalorian for you? And number two, what do you think is going to happen in the wake of this to interest in The Mandalorian overall?
Well, I can honestly say I feel a little bit convicted because I try to live by this ideology where you separate the art from the artist. Now, there are times where I can't always do this, and I can't really think of any examples of what it specifically, but I digress. So, I always try to separate the art from the artist, but this is one of those times where it's hard to do that. And because of that, I'm not really sure where I am with The Mandalorian season 3 because on the outside of it, we're getting a third episode of the we're getting a third season of The Mandalorian season 3 which the previous season ended on a high note, to say the least.
Very, very high note.
Yes. And considering what they did in the second season finale, it makes you think what they've got in store next, especially where we had left off. But with that being said, this isn't the first time The Mandalorian has been flooded with controversy. Where some of my
Yes.
first reactions to this was, of course, the Gina Carano incident, where she had voiced her own opinion on cancel culture and compared it to something that we can't really say on YouTube, but we'll let you get into that yourself. And for Pedro Pascal to voice his opinions on the two individuals involved in this case. He has the right to do it, but it does show that there's something bigger going on. Now, by no means am I a conspiracy theorist. I'm not going to tell you to believe in any sort of conspiracies, but I do want to say that it makes me raise my eyebrows a bit when you compare this sort of scenario that happened to Gina Carano and this one that just happened with Pedro Pascal.
I agree, because this is not the first time Pedro Pascal has said something on Twitter that really set some people ablaze. There was
Mm-hmm.
also his comments surrounding the 2020 election between former President Trump and President Biden, where he equated those that voted for Trump as basically being no different than, well, as history put it, the villains of the Civil War and objectively the villains of World War II.
Yeah, 1940s
So,
Germany.
yes. Now, again, he can believe that if he chooses to, but things like that, talk like that, can only alienate. Talk like that is not
Mm-hmm.
unifying at all. It
Yeah.
can only alienate. And so for me, my thoughts on this is very similar to yours. I do my absolute hardest to separate
Mm-hmm.
the to separate the art from the artist. I've had to do that pretty much admittedly this whole time watching Star Trek because Sulu, George Takei, do not look at his Twitter feed cuz good lord is that stuff toxic. But
Mm-hmm.
yet you don't get a sense of any of that at all when he's, in character as Sulu, and he's very cool to watch. Pedro Pascal himself, even after seeing what he tweeted about Trump supporters, I was still able to enjoy The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
But admittedly for me, my interest in The Mandalorian has been shaken a little bit too. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say a little bit, but it's definitely been shaken when you combine that back in 2020, what happened to Gina Carano, and now this. I
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how to feel about this. Now, we're still going to cover the Mandalorian. Just, someone's got to talk. Someone's got to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I am definitely more apprehensive about it now
Mm-hmm.
than I have been before. And as far as how I think this is going to affect interest in the Mandalorian overall, ultimately it depends what you believe. If you're someone that agrees with what Pedro Pascal is saying here, it won't affect you at all. And honestly, more power to you for that. But if you are
Mm-hmm.
someone that disagrees with what Mr. Pascal has said, then this is a pretty hard pill to swallow, because The Mandalorian has been some of the greatest Star Wars that we've gotten
Yeah.
since Disney took over Lucasfilm. That
It's
alongside
literally it's literally what made Disney Plus come into being.
exactly. And to have basically their flagship, for all intents and purposes, show come into this much controversy, that is not something that
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Disney, well, I'd like to think that I don't think Disney will stand for, but then again, I could be very, very wrong about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let us know in the comments what you guys think about this. Of course, please be respectful as much as you
Yes.
can. But anyways, though, thank you guys for watching this video. Actually, one other thing I will mention real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we disagree with what Mr. Pascal has said, please do not go and harass him on Twitter, because that's just going to make this
Yes.
situation worse.
And I guess some of my final thoughts are on this one video that I recently watched from Markiplier, where a few years ago he was involved with some controversy with streamer PewDiePie over some not safe for work jokes, we will just say. And then for like the first couple of minutes, he talks about respect. And he says that even if you disagree with someone, you need to respect them. You can even hate somebody and hate what they say or do, but you still need to treat them with respect. Because by the end of the day, no matter what Gina Carano posts on Twitter, or on her Instagram feed, or what Pedro Pascal posts on Twitter. Heck, even Kathleen Kennedy, and that's a hard pill to swallow as well. We still need to treat them with some level of basic respect, because by
Yes.
the end of the day, we're all the same.
And I'll to add on to this, that goes double for anyone that considers themselves a Christian, which
Mm-hmm.
Michael and I both do. Because at the end of the day, and I know people are going to disagree on this because everyone has their own different spiritual beliefs. But as for Michael and I, we're both Christians, and at the end of the day, all of these people that we disagree with, Mr. Pascal, Miss Kennedy, all of them, they are still children of God that, as long as they are still alive, have every chance to hear and receive the good news of Jesus Christ. So, honestly, the best thing I'd recommend, pray for them. But anyways, with that, um, that's where we're going to go ahead and end this video. So make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching this. And just remember, everyone, especially in the wake of what we just talked about, the Force is family. See you guys later.